Welcome to Get It Right with Mike, Trey, and Terry. We're glad to have you back. It's the end of the year, guys. We've just about wiped out another year. 2021's coming to a close.
It's almost in the books.
How was Christmas for you guys? Good?
Great.
Yep. Got me a 3D printer.
I saw you post about
That's interesting.
I'll show you all the stuff I made.
Yeah. So it got a pretty cool gadget there, you know. Mm-hmm. I got a new Apple Watch. My wife surprised me.
Well, I was going to say, where would you have gotten that?
My wife, I think she picked it up at this little place called Mac Tech Solutions. Oh, okay. 4020 Ray Road, Wichita Falls, Texas.
Yeah, don't they just fix stuff, you know?
No.
Unfortunately, my wife got me a Crapple watch. So. It was some guy on Scott Street that was selling it out of his jackets. He seemed okay.
$49.95 all day, right in, baby. Yeah, this one was a little more than $49.95.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm glad we could be of service to you too. I mean, no, seriously. It was she kept it a secret. He kept it a secret. No,
it's two secrets this year we've kept.
Well, really three because so my daughter and my son-in-law. So in my living room there's a bar area. It's got double doors open up and there's a sink and all this stuff. But we've never really fixed it up right. So my daughter and my son-in-law rebuilt the whole bar area for us. Put in, a wine rack and some shelves and painted and did it all up really nice. It looks really good. And they managed to keep me out of it for like 2.5 weeks. She put this wrapping paper and these big bows over the doors, with a label that said, "Do not touch, Dad, this means you." And so they managed to keep that a secret from me as well. So that's 3 this year they've got me with. My 50th birthday party, which I knew nothing about. And then this and then the bar. I knew nothing about.
I was involved in 2 of those.
Yeah.
He was involved in the birthday.
Yeah.
And
just goes to show that Mike's wife's good at keeping secrets from him.
She's really good at it, and I should be disturbed, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about 2021. Mm-hmm. Don't turn it off yet.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about 2021, kind of a year in review thing, just kind of discussing some of the things that have happened this year. One of the big things, and I'm going to start with this if you guys don't mind, here in Texas. So we've allocated billions of dollars in Texas to complete the border wall in Texas along our border with Mexico.
Yeah, on Texas property land, not federal land.
That's right.
Yes.
And so we've got this project underway that we're putting billions of dollars toward as Texas taxpayers. I believe it's $2.5 billion at last count that has been allocated to this. That won't be enough. That won't get it finished. But it's a project that the feds have completely abandoned. You go back to January of this year, and one of the first things President Biden does, right out of the box, is kills the border wall project.
That's right.
Kills it.
Yeah. The thing is, people kept talking about the Keystone Pipeline, which was a big deal in the jobs there. Yeah. I kept saying, agreed on the Keystone Pipeline. Nobody's talking about the border wall jobs. Right. That border wall was not building itself. There was a lot of people down there building on that. That was another good. First off, it was good for our country, but it was also good paying jobs.
Exactly. And it was, again, we go back to the security of the nation. We need a physical barrier. They know we need a physical barrier. We need more than that. But they just completely killed border security. And that was one of the first things that happened in January of this year, was the border security just was wiped out and no longer made a priority. Well, now, so we've got all this unused steel that the feds have bought and paid for with your tax dollars.
That's the biggest. That's one of the big drives me nuts.
Yeah, your money, our money, all of us who pay taxes in America, we've paid for this material already, and they will not share any of it with us to complete the Texas section of the border wall. So now you got literally, what was it, couple of $1 billion in steel, $100 million. We don't know how much it is.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money one way or another. In this unused material that's just laying there, that's just going to rust.
And it's, by the way, it's form steel. If you look at it's already, the panels are already made. It's not like it's just piles of metal out there. No, somebody's already put the labor. We've already paid for the labor to build these panels.
That's right.
Now, I don't know if all of it's built already panels, but there's a lot of built panels out there. You know, it really pisses me off because it's criminal. It's actually criminal. You are not supposed to. There's a thing called fraud, waste, and abuse, Terry.
That's right.
How many times did you hear that when you were in the military?
Gosh, that was
fraud, waste, and abuse. And by the way, this is abuse and waste.
Very much so.
And it's a federal crime, is it not? It's
Absolutely,
a federal crime to abuse and waste taxpayer dollars, and that's what they're doing by letting that stuff sit there.
Yeah.
It's fraud, it's abuse, and it's waste, and they should be brought with criminal charges on it.
Well, but who? But it would be Biden, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the Biden administration.
But does that raise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors, though?
No, not him personally, but his administration.
Yeah, but
the Department of Interior or the Department of whoever it is.
Someone needs to be held responsible for it.
not at least trying to the projects are canceled all the time. We know
Sure.
that, and there's material and things, but at least there's this. In the military, they have the Defense Reutilization and Marketing Office.
Right.
I guess they call it the same. That's where you can go buy the $5 Jeep, or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, at least they could do something like that, but they haven't done that, I guess. And they do have ways of releasing property to, like they do it all the time for, what did we end up with through after Desert Storm, Desert Shield, or the latest, whatever, not Desert Storm. But anyway, way back when there were a lot of excess vehicles and things that were put into the civilian police departments, which is a whole nother discussion whether they need APUs or whatever they call them.
But it's still reallocated resources.
Reallocate the resources and everything, and that's what's not been done in this case.
Tell me more about this $5 Jeep, because I could use one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's been always the thing.
That's all. Yeah, right. But it does happen. And there are surplus sales and stuff like that. They'll put the stuff on a surplus sale, and Governor Abbott can send a representative. We can bid on it, whatever it is. It's but it is not unusual, like Terry said, for them to reallocate those resources to states, to local municipalities, and things like that. But they're refusing to do it because they're drawing a line in the sand because it's the wall.
Right.
Just let it waste. Yeah.
And you can't. The fact of the matter is, just because you don't personally like something, maybe you're anti. I mean, do you think the Navy doesn't want to care about the Jeeps out there? But if they have excess Jeeps, they got to get rid of them or whatever. Whatever.
But who is it? That'd be the question, though. Who is it that's made that decision? Is it if it is in fact Biden himself making that decision? Does that not then keep everybody protects everybody else? If he is the sole person that says no, you will not grant or do anything with any of this material, doesn't that fall on him? Which then would be nearly impossible to bring him on charges. So I think it's a political move.
And I think there's also a question of, does he really have the authority to just on his own kill the project?
I don't see how he would, because it's not Department of Defense.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But my point is, I would like for somebody to look into it.
Well, yeah,
somebody who's higher up, who knows the law.
It's going to be Congress
to look into it, because it is Congress is the one who has the purse string. The president is in charge of the Department of Defense.
Well, let me ask you, guys. Okay,
so in charge of, I thought he had in terms of all of the departments
to some degree, but there is, like, the Department of Justice. He doesn't. The president can't pick up the phone and tell the Department of Justice what to do.
Well, that's true.
Separates the powers.
Separated. That there is. Yeah, he is the commander in chief when it comes to the military, the armed forces.
Yes.
Right.
But he still is limited there, because he can't decide we're going to go invade Great Britain tomorrow.
Then how's he telling us that OSHA is responsible for this stupid mandate that
because he's the mouthpiece behind it. He's a mouthpiece behind it, but there's somebody else in his administration that is making those decisions.
So here's the thing. With regard to the vaccine mandates, I think there's a universal agreement among most political, I want to use the term scholars, but it's not universal among the scholars. There is a lot of agreement that the president has overstepped the bounds of his authority in issuing these mandates.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons the Supreme Court is going to take up this mandate on private companies with 100 or more employees. If they manage to kill that mandate, I think it kills the others as well. Because now you've set the precedent and you've made it a lot easier for the legal challenges to take place, I would think, anyway. Once SCOTUS says this is not constitutionally permissible, or the president exceeded his constitutional authority, however that decision is going to read. Now they could, in fact, find that it's perfectly acceptable, which it's not. I don't think it is. I think the only logical conclusion that the court can come to is that the president has exceeded his constitutional authority in A, issuing the mandate, and then B, tasking this federal agency, in this case OSHA, with creating the rules and administering them and enforcing them. I think he has overstepped his bounds as president. Now, could OSHA on their own come up? Yeah, they probably could. But
usually it's
maybe
a law that's passed by Congress that the president signs.
That's been the problem.
Who then demands that a certain department do something.
Part of our problem, though, Terry, is that Congress has ceded so much authority to these agencies to basically create de facto laws.
Right.
Well, and then they've used these executive orders, executive powers.
Exactly.
Executive powers have run rampant in this country from city councils to the presidency.
Yes.
And everywhere in between.
Yeah.
City councils, county commissioners, governors. This is ridiculous. This crap about executive power. You do not have the executive. Not everything's an emergency. And by the way, it can't be an emergency for how many months can it be an emergency?
Well, and that's here's the thing too. The thing with executive orders and executive, whatever. This has been going on for years like this. Only in the last 2 years has all of it really. If the pandemic has done anything, it shined a light on a lot of dark corners that everyone has kind of ignored, supply chain issues, executive orders, the way government is mismanaged, a lot of the waste. It has shined a light on a lot of dark corners. And people are starting to go, wait a minute, why is this going on? Well, how long has this been happening? All of a sudden now more and more people are starting to question some of these things. And I think people that otherwise would never have paid attention before, now suddenly are paying attention. And they're asking why, and no one in the government's being very forthcoming about any of this stuff. I mean, let's just admit it. You don't get a lot of clarity. You don't get a lot of real answers. You get a lot of conjecture. You get fed a lot of crap, but you don't get direct answers to a lot of direct questions still. But more people, I think, are starting to ask those questions. And that's putting pressure on them to come up with answers at some point.
So just something. Did you notice the difference between executive order, executive action? Doesn't executive action just, it's not a big deal, but executive order just sounds pretty ominous.
And by the way, in the history, there has been executive orders. Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, Idi Amin.
Yeah.
Those people took executive orders.
Right.
And look how that turned out. Just saying, when you start wanting things to go by executive order, you're wanting to circumvent our system of government, the greatest system of government that has ever existed. And yes, it is hard. Democracy is hard. You're going to have fighting. You're going to have compromise. But that's the whole point behind it, because otherwise you could just have executive orders, and we've seen in the past, if history hasn't shown us, what do executive orders lead to? Dictatorships.
This is why our founders set us up, though, as a representative republic, so that we elect people to go and make decisions on our behalf. And if we don't like the decisions they're making, we have the power to fire them.
That's right.
It's called the ballot box. Now, the problem is we don't have enough people taking part in that process. And that brings me up here to something that we've got at the top of our list. Get involved with your local politics or understand who is running in those elections. This is vital. You've got to be involved. And part of our problem in our society, and you guys tell me if you agree or disagree. I bet you're going to agree with me on this, though. We're scared to death to have political discussions with people. We're terrified of it. We've been taught it's not polite. You shouldn't do it. Don't talk politics or religion with anybody because you're just going to start a fight. That attitude toward those conversations has, I think, led us into some really deep and dangerous waters. We have to be able to have conversations about these things. You need to get involved in your politics on a local level, but you need to also understand at the state and federal level what's going on too, because crap all runs downhill.
Well,
period.
Here's the thing on this topic right here. What people have learned during this pandemic was there are actually people in your city council, your county commissioner, and things like that you don't even know. A lot of times you don't even know their names. You don't really care because they're just doing this and that. They can affect your business.
That's right.
They can affect your livelihood. They can impose, if you let them, by the way,
right.
You can tell them to piss off, but if you let them, they can impose rules and regulations not by passing laws, by the way.
Right.
They're passing ordinances that are de facto laws, but they're not really the law of the land. They're just the law of your county or your city. Right. Passing ordinances saying you have to wear a mask, or you can't go outside during a certain time, or you have a curfew, or you can't have your business. These people are making rules and regulations, and in the past we've kind of, I say we as a group, I think a lot of people kind of brush it. It's just the city, just the county. No, you've seen what kind of power they actually can wield.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say they're the ones that are going to enforce it directly on there. You're not going to have any Fed showing up and implementing any of this, but it's going to be your sheriff or your local police or whatever, and so they're going to be following the orders of your local governments. And so just be careful
who you vote for,
and
know who you're voting for,
and be careful what you don't pay attention to.
That's
right?
right.
I mean,
absolutely.
We need to be able to have these political discussions between us, citizens, the people, the voters. Your family, your friends, your coworkers. We need to be able to have these discussions. And I think that the way that you can have the discussions, first of all the parties involved in the discussion need to first come to this agreement that we're not going to agree on everything. Mm-hmm. We're going to disagree. We're not going to see eye to Tracer All and I have known each other for 30, 35 years. We don't agree on everything.
No.
We're pretty damn close on.
We agree on the major. You're
90%
right,
of stuff.
But there's times, and we've been on the air together, and we've had disagreements. But here's the thing: we disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
The whole point is that's the thing. Same thing with Terry. Yeah. Terry hasn't agreed with me or with you on every little thing. It doesn't matter. That's good. Yeah. That's healthy discussion because it doesn't mean we're going to get into a pissing contest.
Yeah, we didn't end up out in the parking lot with pistols at 30 paces. Nothing like that.
It's because it's a respect. The fact of the matter is, what you need to do is everybody needs to respect that when somebody has an opinion, that's their opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but respect that that's their opinion.
But we first, I think you have to first start from the standpoint that, we're human. We've got differences. It doesn't matter. You're tall, short, fat, skinny, black, white, brown, from Minnesota or Texas or California or New Jersey. It doesn't matter. We're all different. Every one of us. And we're not going to agree on 100% of everything all the time. So if you can start from that viewpoint, then I think you can have rational conversations about it. And I know this is a cliche term anymore, but agree to disagree. You're just going to have to.
Well, what we used to use the term, I was on the school board, and what we used to term is we can disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
And you can disagree with each other, and you can argue and fight, but or debate. I don't want to fight, but debate. But don't be disagreeable about it. And in the end, when a decision is made, it's a majority decision, and we're going with it. And I was proud of what I was proud of because I was on the losing end of several votes. But I'm telling you, when I walked out there and the first thing that happened is one of the local news stations put a camera and a microphone in my face, I said, this is the decision that the board made, and I support the decision. Yeah. I've already said in there why I disagreed with the decision before the vote. Yeah. But once the vote was made, and yes, I voted against it or whatnot, but the decision stands, and I stand behind the decision because that's what the majority rule was.
Well, so what do we think of all the things that have happened this year? Each of you guys, what stands out as the most significant development this year or happening this year?
Oh goodness. I think that, I mean, it's one of the topics I have on the list of tech-related ones, but we'll go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah.
Is that with them banning on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, banning Trump from being
social
able to use
platforms,
those platforms,
right.
right? So I think that's a big deal, and I think that obviously that any legislation that come out of that to restrict or tie the hands of those platforms, because I know where you stand on it. And I for the most part, agree with you. I think about that these platforms have become the public square.
They have,
and I think the part, and you'll know specifically of the is on it, but by you've got as a publisher, you have certain responsibilities and privileges, and as a certain platform of just if you can say who can stay and who can go, then you've got editorial control.
You do,
and with that, then you can be held responsible for things that you do. But they're wanting the best of both worlds. They want to be able to do whatever they want, allow anything they want, but restrict what people can say on their own platforms. I think and that's where and plus the government is behind in some ways because they're supporting a lot of the the COVID. I mean, you're seeing COVID every doggone message. If the word COVID or is mentioned in a video, you don't have to. It doesn't have to have text.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people are using code words.
Throw a warning on it.
Right, there's a warning. Be aware. There's, it's like, God, I'm just tired of this. But anyway, the censorship, and that is not, in the purest sense, it's not censorship from the government at this point. Right. Although we think there's some involvement there, but it is a censorship for sure. But it's a private platform that's doing it so far. But there's such ties in with what the government's mandating. That's the other thing. Is that's where it gets into it. The government is saying, look, Facebook, Twitter, and you guys need to clean up your act. And, of course, now they're doing it, obviously.
Well, now everything that they disagree with in terms of an opinion is being labeled misinformation. Right. We're combating misinformation.
Yes.
So if you don't agree with it.
Oh, my goodness. Fact checkers. Everybody's a fact checker now.
It's just some damn dumbass sitting in mom or dad's basement eating Twinkies and Cheetos and, some little fat freak that's got no sense of social skills whatsoever. That's what I envision the damn fact checkers looking like and being like. It's just somebody that's very disconnected from society. How do you combat that? How do we push back on that, really? These guys control the flow of information and news and the exchange of ideas now. They completely control it.
Break them up. I think there's a monopoly now. I think Facebook's gotten to the point where it's a monopoly, and I think it's time for the federal government to step in and break them up. So
do you think maybe the move on Zuckerberg's part with the Meta move?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that was him trying to get out in front of that? Absolutely. They see the writing on the wall.
That, and they're running commercials all the time about, hey, this is Lily. She works for Facebook, and she's a content, filter or whatever the hell they call them. And they have this whole discussion like it's a real serious discussion of, well, we want the federal government to come up with these rules and stuff like that. No, I think it's time. I think it's time to break them up. I'm not big on the federal government getting involved, but the fact of the matter is, if we're going to have monopolies and we're going to break up, if we're not going to allow Ma Bell to happen, how can we allow Facebook to happen? And we've already seen that Facebook basically was able to influence a major election. Yep. Now, I'm not saying that Biden wouldn't have won without the Facebook influence. But the fact of the matter is, when Hunter Biden's laptop was found and all that came out and it was completely squashed off social media, Facebook did, in some sense, protect Joe Biden from showing the corruption that had been in his past. And that being said, that could have been the difference in swinging the election. I don't know, but it damn sure even Stevie Wonder could have seen that it had something to do with the election.
Yeah, they definitely had a lot of influence and sway in it. No question about that. But when you've become that pipeline for the flow of information, ideas, and opinions, when you become that major pipeline for that, now all of a sudden you have control of what's going through that pipeline, and you can squash anything you want to squash. And this is, you know, the days of people running home and watching the 5:30 national news, they're not doing that. Right here, this is where everybody's getting their information now. They're getting. I just set my watch off. They're using the smartphone.
Your Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch, yes.
Yeah, from Mac Tech Solutions.
Yes. And your news, national, even a lot of your local news now, you're getting it through your device, and you're getting connected to that information through a Facebook or a Twitter or an Instagram. There's some social media platform between you and that information or that news feature. That's how you're getting there.
Well,
it's impractical to go to each app. Yes, because each,
Right.
Fox News has an app. NBC, MSNBC, ABC. Everybody has an app. However, it's funneled, and you're getting it. It's all aggregated onto these platforms.
So I was going to say, now they're an aggregator of this information.
Well, haven't we proven that they can shut anybody down? Because wasn't there this thing called Parler that was coming out? And basically it got shut down
by Amazon.
Well,
yeah.
So
because Amazon is also a huge platform, which is another part of my reviews.
Parler was being hosted on their servers.
You get a point. That's what I'm saying. You get these massive, powerful entities that can shut people down and control business. So my biggest, to answer your question, my biggest year in review thing was looking back, and it's more of a total thing. It's the incompetence of the Biden administration. And when I mean that, and I'm not being partisan here, by the way, and because if you're a Democrat and you think that the Biden administration, if you think that Joe Biden is sound of mind and you think Kamala Harris has done a good job, you're a dumbass. I will look straight in the camera. You are a dumbass. If you really believe in your heart of hearts, you're an idiot. Because the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden, we've seen as he's gotten on the national stage, duly elected, by the way, he was elected, he's the president. As he's gotten on the national stage, we've seen the rapid decline of his cognitive abilities. Okay,
Yes.
and then we've seen how incompetent Kamala Harris is as a politician. She is incompetent, and I think those two things. That's possibly the biggest story of the year, in my opinion. That's outside of COVID, I guess. Even though COVID ties in because of their incompetence of dealing with the COVID.
I think the Democratic Party has demonstrated through their actions and their treatment of her, their reactions to her, they don't respect Kamala Harris. They don't like her. They don't respect her.
It must be because she's a minority and she's a woman too, by the way.
It's
because you're an idiot and because you're incompetent. That's why.
She checked a lot of boxes.
That's all she did.
She checked a lot of boxes, but they don't like her. They don't trust her. They don't respect her. And I think they've made it abundantly clear that they don't. I think when you look at her performance in the primary, when she was trying to get the nomination for president, I mean, she was the bottom of the list, man.
Yeah. Well, so that's a question that's probably a topic for another show. But if our system of politics allows this to happen, and it's the best in the world, what the heck?
What the hell's the worst?
If this happens, what? Oh my gosh!
God.
What? So I mean, what is the way to solve it? That's just a question.
Well, I think
people being more engaged.
Well, number one. Sorry about that. Number one, I think that shut up. I think what you have to do is, first of all, you and I.
You got to turn your phone off on two different things.
Yeah,
you got to turn your phone down. You got to turn your watch down. He's going to have his implant next time. He'll have to turn it down as well.
I'll just focus and turn it off.
Musk will provide the chip.
I've already has an implant, but it's on the other end. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they told me my ass needed help. So anyway, sorry. The whole you and I, the voters, we have to, and this goes right back to the part about being involved in your local politics. Know who's running. You and I have to get involved, as we mentioned earlier, in the conversations. We have to have the conversations, first of all. But we also have to educate ourselves. There's a responsibility that falls on us, the voter. And we're going to, we're going to get into this here in a minute about the local schools. I think we're going to maybe mention that briefly, because this has a tie into that. Here we have to be engaged and involved. We have to educate ourselves. There has to be a responsibility on us to play a role in the decision making, but know who we're electing, know who we're voting for, have an understanding. Don't just take some sound bites off television or off social media or anywhere else and let that be the determining factor on who you're going to support. Actually be able to identify these people and have some understanding of their background, their history, their skill sets, and their ability to lead.
You know, the number one thing I think that could change all of this, term limits.
I
The number
totally
one thing.
agree.
I know the president already has term limits.
Totally agree.
But Biden, for instance, Biden has been in Washington, D.C. for 50-some-odd years. He shouldn't be there.
No, he shouldn't be.
Nobody. I mean, he shouldn't have had a chance to be the president coming right out of Congress like that, or coming right off the heels of a vice president, from Congress to vice president, and just keep coasting through. So I think the number one thing we could do is enact term limits. That would help a lot. That's not going to solve the problem, but it would help the problem.
We have too many people in political office at every level that have made a career out of politics.
But see, like locally, there are term limits. In Wichita Falls, Texas, where it's a town of 100,000 people, a small city of 100,000 people, there's term limits on the mayor. There's term limits on city council.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
So why can't you do term? I mean, if you're going to do term limits on your local politicians, why can't you do it on your national politicians?
I think, though, at the national scale, the only way we're ever going to get it done, and I mean codified, is we're going to have to do it through an Article 5 Convention of States, unfortunately. And that brings some dangers, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other show right there, because that's a deep discussion. When you start getting into Article 5, that gets into some deep territory. But I think it's the only way we're going to get it done, simply because these guys are never going to limit them. They're not going to kill their own golden goose. My God, it's a payday and a half up there being in Congress for 30, 40 years. Does it not dawn on anybody? How the hell does somebody get elected to Congress, say at the age of 40, and by the time they're 70, they're a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
And the only thing they've done in 3 decades or more is serving government.
So what about, has anybody gone back and looked at Robert Byrd and even our Strom Thurmond on the Republican side, and how many of these others that were in there for years and years? Were they millionaires when they left?
And they had some pretty salacious ties too. I mean, they're just not good stuff.
I think one of the things that you could stop. I mean, I know it's a little off topic, but since you kind of opened that door, I think one of the things you could stop, curb some of that is, if you're elected to Congress, you should be required to put anything into a blind trust.
Yeah.
Whereas that's exactly what Mitt Romney did, because people were talking about Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney had to put everything in a blind trust.
That's right.
Donald Trump had to put everything in a blind trust, which a blind trust, by the way, means it's blind. You can't see it. You can't influence it.
Right.
You can't have any say over it.
You're not in control of it.
You're not in control of it. And so I'm not saying that you should not be able to invest. I mean, anybody should be allowed to invest. But it's, you go, I'm investing $50,000 this year, and that's it. It's investing.
Yeah.
And you have no control. You have no say-so and all that. And to me, once again, that would stop some of this bullshit.
I think it could have a deep impact on it. But, I want to circle back for a second here I want to do a Jen Psaki here and circle back with you.
You don't have the peppermint patty haircut, though.
You know what? Now I can never unsee that. I can never watch a Peanuts cartoon again and not see her.
That's right.
Never. Isn't she the one that always yanks the football?
No, that's Lucy.
Is that Lucy? Okay.
The intellectual.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about Jen being intellectual at all. Let's don't give her any more credit than we need to. On a local level, like with the schools, there's a big controversy here right now over the naming of 2 new high schools. And the names that were chosen, they took the soft route here, in my opinion. Wichita Falls Memorial High School and Wichita Falls Legacy High School.
They just so so similar.
They went with a very vanilla, plain. They tried to the least confrontational. And this is what I think in the minds of the board. This was the least confrontational approach. Maybe this was a way to dissipate any controversies about names, and all it did was create even more controversy because now there's a petition drive underway to save Wichita Falls High School, or Old High as we call it locally, as a name and as a namesake and as a legacy in itself.
Okay, here's my 2 cents on this. People need to grow up. You're grown-ass people. Who gives a shit? I'm serious.
But,
these
Trey,
grown people that are crying over mascots and stuff like that, you're grown. You're out of high school. Who cares?
Well, here's my point. From the beginning, there was an understanding, and it was stated very clearly. We will not be carrying the Ryder High School, the Wichita Falls High School mascots and colors and legacies over to the new high schools.
Exactly.
That will not. These will be brand new schools with brand new names, brand new mascots, brand new everything. We're starting from scratch with this, and that was clearly stated from the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I will give them credit. The naming committee, the school board, everybody involved in this chain was very clear. I think from the beginning that was the intention. Now all of a sudden we got a bunch of people with their panties in a knot over this
because
deal.
they're grown. They're grown children. They're adults that need to be adults and quit worrying about high school days. High school's over. And if it was your best days, I'm sorry. That's your life. But the fact of the matter is, it boggles my mind.
But it was
grown adults who have to mire themselves in this bullshit. These names.
There was an understanding from the beginning that this is what was going to happen.
That was what was laid out.
Now,
this is how it's going to be.
Now, I think they took a very soft approach.
Run for school board if you don't like it.
I think they took a very soft approach in the naming. I think they tried to go such a safe route that they actually created more controversy around it. But the controversy is developing in a way and for reasons that shouldn't exist. You were told from the beginning. Here's the thing. I can understand if you're, and I'm speaking to the local audience here, the hyper-local audience here. I can understand if you're mad about the names. I don't like them either. Now, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't pay taxes in the Wichita Falls ISD. I don't have any skin in this game. None. I don't have a dog in this fight, really. But, and as much as I disagree with shutting down Hershey as a high school, I understand the why. I get the economics and the mechanics around it.
Yeah,
I get that.
It had to happen.
I don't like it, but I get it. But you were told from the beginning, we're not carrying those names and those legacies and those colors and those mascots over to the new schools. That was plainly and clearly stated. Now, that's what the fight is centered around, is the Wichita Falls High School legacy, the coyote mascot, the black and the red colors. It's all built around that. The controversy is centering around that. And I think, personally, all of this could have been averted from the beginning if they had chosen to honor someone in the community, some persons in the community, by naming the high schools after them. And I think if you had gone through with the naming committee, and maybe those were considerations at one point, I don't know.
Yeah, they were all every suggestion that was brought to the naming committee.
Yeah, I think you could have gone if you had named them after prominent, influential, important persons in the community. I think you could have shut down a lot of this debate.
I disagree with you. I'm gonna disagree with you because I've been involved as a school board member of naming elementary school, and the names of when it came to naming them after people,
right,
that was the most divisive controversy that we've seen, because people, I agree, this is a prominent individual, but that's not my prominent individual, and this is that's not my prominent individual. Yeah. And I think it would have caused more chaos and more controversy than the names that are now. Well, that's my opinion.
And I don't know if there's anybody still around that can directly and accurately address this, but how much controversy was there when they built John H. Hershey High School?
Well, not much, because John H. Hershey, the Hershey family donated the land. That's why.
Okay. And S.H. Ryder High School. That's named after a person.
Yeah, that one I don't know but the Hershey family and the West Foundation, when the elementary school was named West Foundation, that was donated because it was donated. The people donated the money and the land to build that facility.
As I understand, S.H. Ryder High School is named after a former Wichita Falls High School principal.
Yeah, I believe so. And I don't know what the controversy was.
That didn't start a fight,
Yeah.
but this does?
Yeah, I don't know. But I can tell you, when Scotland Park and Southern Hills were built, there was all kinds of names. Otis Polk, Luis Rodriguez. I mean, I don't remember all. There was Merle Anthony. There was so many names, and people they were dug in because this is my person. Right. This is my favorite person. Yeah. And it went to so many different directions. Yeah. So I don't have a problem with the names of the high schools because I don't care one way or another. I mean, and by the way, I pay taxes in the WFISD. So I don't vote in the WFISD, but I do pay taxes. And I'm fine with it. You know, move on with it.
I think I'm proud of the fact that they were finally able to just get it done. I think the community needs the new high schools. I think they will benefit us economically as well as educationally. I think in the long term, I think there's a long-term payoff to building these new high schools. And you're going to build two new buildings that are going to be solid for the next 75 years, maybe 100 years. You know, they're going to have I think more useful life than the old facilities had.
Well, sure. The technology, the building technology is different. Yeah. The way they build things, you know, at one time, like when Wichita Falls High School was built or any of the old elementary schools, it was a box with little boxes in it. It was basically what you did. You built a box and built little boxes inside.
A little different.
And now they have flexible space. They can move walls. It's not all, cinder block concrete walls that you can't move.
Right. Well, so now moving on here to the Build Back Better plan. This is another thing that has engulfed us for the entire year. We have already seen trillions of dollars in new spending this year as a result of all this stuff. And Joe Manchin, senator from Virginia or West Virginia? West Virginia. Basically,
Rosie O'Donnell's favorite state, by the way.
Oh my God!
Or was it Whoopi Goldberg? One of them had to walk it back. No, Joy Behar. One of those idiots had to walk that.
No, it was Bette Midler.
Bette Midler. I knew it was one of the dumbasses.
Shot her mouth off about it. Yeah, and she had to walk it back quick. But Joe Manchin, along with a little help from a couple of other Democrats, Kristen Sinema being one of them, they were able to shut down the Build Back Better plan for the time being. Now, my prediction is that, we're at the end of 2021, and this is this $3.5 trillion spending bill is a dead horse for now. My prediction is they're going to come back in January or February with a revised, probably slightly cheaper version of this bill. They're going to go in, they're going to carve out a few things, but they're going to come back with another, and they're not going to call it Build Back Better. They're going to come up with another name. They're going to rebrand it. They're going to have to.
You call it Build Back Better or
better. They're going to come back with another plan. It's going to be another $1 trillion plus pile of bullshit again. Okay? And they're going to push, and they're going to push as hard as they can. They've got about 9 or 10 months to really ramrod this stuff through. And then it's over. We get to the midterms next year, it's done. They're done. It's cooked. How many Democrats have announced this year they're not going to seek re-election for their seats?
A lot.
I think we're up to like 9 or 10 for sure.
Yeah, and some of them are like committee chairs and stuff like that too.
And they're just walking away. So they know they're on borrowed time in 2022. And so even though this year, this has now died, they're going to come back with another version. They're going to rebrand it as something else. It's going to have maybe a slightly smaller price tag, but it's still going to be $1.5 trillion. I'm going to predict at least $1.5 trillion, maybe $2 trillion. And they're going to push as hard as they can. I think they'll probably engage in a nationwide campaign, a physical campaign nationwide, to get people to support this, because they're going to try to convince you there's no way in hell your life can move forward without it. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think that's a good call.
I think the other thing big this year, and we're going to move on here because I know Terry wants to hit a few
Terry's got a lot
here.
of tech stuff.
But real quick, the other big thing is gas prices. Look at what's happened to gas prices at the pump. We have seen double-digit increases year over year. Like a 58, 59% run up in gasoline prices. Now they're talking about oil touching $100 a barrel in 2022, which is going to be really bad for the small producers. When that price comes crashing back down to earth, and it will, who gets pinched the hardest in that fall? It's the small independent producers. It's not the Texacos or the Conocos or the whoever co's, the BPs or whoever the hell's around now. Those big guys, their pockets are so deep and so wide, they can weather a 30, 40% drop in prices. They can weather through it. But the small independent producers can't. They get hurt every single, well, they're already getting hurt now because the cost of getting that oil out of the ground is incredibly high.
It's getting more expensive, yeah. And as the price of the barrel goes up, the competition for those people, there's only so many people out there who are well loggers and roughnecks, and there's only so many people who can do those jobs. There's a lot of people that can go work on an oil rig, but I mean, as far as the technical side of the oil rig, there's only so many people, and they're going to demand more and more. And like you said, the smaller producers won't be able to pay those.
Well, guys, and I think we all agree on this. Again, we go back to the beginning of the year when the president killed the Keystone Pipeline project and shut down a lot of this domestic drilling. Now we're putting ourselves in a position of creating shortages that are forcing prices. I mean, it's economics 101. When your supply is low and your demand is high, prices are going to go up. It's going to happen. And now we've squeezed our supply so damn tight, and demand is still pretty strong. But what's going to happen is, I think $3.15 a gallon is kind of the magic marker. That's kind of the magic number. We get beyond $3 a gallon, you start rethinking your choices. Okay, do I really need to take this vacation this year? Do we really need to travel to see grandma this year? Do we really need to do this? Then you start reallocating funds in your budget because your household income ain't going up, but your costs are. So you start reallocate because you got to put gas in that car or that truck. You got to get to work. You got to run your business. Whatever it is you do, you still got to buy fuel. So you're going to start reallocating dollars from other places to make sure you can still buy that fuel, even if it's $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon, as it already is on the West Coast. You're going to buy that fuel, but you're going to start pulling money away from other aspects of the economy. And what does that do? That puts a drain. We saw this happen back in 08, 09, when gas prices shot to $4 plus per gallon on an average nationally, and oil was $130 whatever dollars a barrel. And what happened? All those inflationary pressures and all of those pressures that were put on other aspects of the economy that depend on fuel and travel and consumer spending all got squeezed. Oil crashes.
And not only that, then you also have the additional pressure. You have the additional pressure of the transportation cost, because truckers. It's not like Terry's going to pay $4 a gallon for gas for his fuel, but the truckers only pay $2 a gallon.
That's right.
They pay it for $4 a gallon as well. So that increases the inflation of now your pair of blue jeans is higher.
Well, shipping is already much higher than it was a year ago. My gosh, it is. Yeah. It is significant. You used to be able to do like a 2-day delivery for $30, $35. Now that's ground. And then to get it, it's almost $100 in many cases to get like 2-day, and then overnight's at $150 for something small.
Well, and in your cases, you guys both, you don't just sell retail products to the public, but you also service products. Mm-hmm. You service all Apple products. You service Polaris and Honda and Kawasaki and all this stuff that comes into your shop. If you've got a customer that brings a device or a machine in that needs a part, you got to have it. They need it fixed. So you're going to have to pay that extra shipping to get it here in a day or 2 or 3, and you're going to have to pass that on to the customer. You can't eat those excess charges forever. I don't know why some people, and there are people out here who think that if you're a business, it's costing you more. Well, just write it off. You can't write everything off.
Well, no, but it comes. It takes when you write something off. you're still got to buy it.
That's right.
That's right.
It's not like it's free. you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So people have so many misconceptions about how this has to work.
You last shipment you got from Apple, you didn't open up the box. They had a bunch of extra stuff laying in there, did they?
No.
Yeah.
No invoice or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not.
Throw in bonus.
Yeah.
They don't send you 10 computers and a wad of cash with it. You know?
Yeah. Yes. They don't send you a baker's dozen. Buy 2 get 1 free.
No, that
Well,
happen that way.
all right. So we got
Siri's
a
got
number of things tech related from this year we want to talk about.
Yeah, and it'll touch on various aspects of things anyway.
Yep.
So, well, the first one, we mentioned it earlier. So Trump was banned from the internet back in January after the January 6th. Yeah, you say January 6th, and everybody knows what that means.
And now he's launching his own platform.
Yeah. He's done. Yeah. So, but he was banned from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yeah.
Initially, it was, like just an initial, hey, we're going to hold you off for a little bit and just put you in the timeout, and then that
Gonna be on
they
the naughty
made
step.
it permanent. Now, at least from Facebook, and Trump is suspended until at least January 2023. So the other platforms, I don't know that they've announced when he can come back, but he's making his own. So we'll see how that goes.
I don't think he cares at this point.
Now, do you remember? Okay, we've all heard of GameStop.
Oh yeah.
Right. Do you remember what happened earlier this year with GameStop?
Yeah, there was some sort of somebody started buying all their stock and selling all their stock, and they basically manipulated the stock.
Right.
Not GameStop, but somebody, some outside investor manipulated all the stock.
Making big money in stock trading is usually the domain of hedge funds and professional stock traders, right? So, but back, apparently there were a bunch of people in Wall Street, the professionals, were thinking they were trying to end up selling short. So they wanted to, basically, they wanted GameStop to go down.
They wanted to take a loss.
Well, the wind of that got onto the internet, and people went and started buying them GameStop, and which caused the price to go up 140%, which caused those investors to lose a lot of money.
Wasn't it a group of people? There was somebody that was kind of behind it. It was. There was somebody who was kind of at the center of making all that happen. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, but it was on social media. Basically, the idea is that it proves that social media you can put together and join forces and make something happen. Right. And it's not crowd funded necessarily, but crowd sourced information here. And it went out, and now I imagine some of those people ended up losing some money as well. But
I'm sure.
So and a lot of people probably didn't know what they were getting into. But anyway, just something to think about that. Because we always hear about when Elon Musk speaks or some big CEO somewhere says something. For a stock or a Bitcoin or something like that.
Yeah, like Elon Musk raised the price of some Bitcoin or some
Doge. Was it Dogecoin?
No, it was a cryptocurrency that's named after like his dog or something.
Well, that was Doggy Coin. Doji.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
I don't know. But it went up because Elon Musk made some big deal.
Right. Okay. So that's something to remember. Was the GameStop.
Here, boy.
And what about Apple and Facebook's argument over privacy? Remember that became a big deal. Apple basically was coming out with an update for the iOS, and so that was going to make you opt in whether you want a certain app to track you across different platforms. Okay, and so 90+% of us said no, we don't want to do that, and so Facebook was like, but you're good. And they had a big campaign how this is going to ruin your Facebook experience or something. And I think that's all kind of settled down a little bit. Well, a couple of things. One is it's not as bad as what Facebook was making it out to be. And it also wasn't as good as what Apple really said. Because the truth is they can still track you in other ways. It's just that Apple has such a presence on so many phones that they were able to have some influence over that. But in the end, it's better, but it's still not perfect by any means. So remember McAfee, the software?
Very well.
Well, do you remember John McAfee died in June? And he was found in a prison cell, dead. He was under...
Right, yeah, he
was basically had been arrested and was under investigation for a lot of different charges in the U.S. and was about to be extradited to the U.S.
Yeah, he was somewhere in a foreign country.
Yep, he was in Spain. And
That's right.
Basically was found dead, and so ruling it as a suicide, but his ex-wife or wife or something, anyways, was thinking, no, something's up here. So anyway, just remember that. That was back in June. He was 75, but he was a crazy dude. He was a weird dude. So that's a whole nother discussion. But
he had one of those Jeffrey Epstein suicides, huh?
yep.
Yeah.
So and then what did we see this year with spaceflight?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had basically had some billionaires, seeing who can do it better.
Yeah.
But you had Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos all go up in well, I guess Elon didn't go yet, but
No, I think he was on Musk on the first flight.
was he? Did he go?
I believe he was. I believe it was he and his brother and somebody else.
Oh wow!
I believe
But-
that's
but-
correct.
Well,
Okay.
no, it was Jeff Bezos and his brother.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
And-
maybe, okay, yeah, I had it backwards. You're right.
And there was
Yeah.
a female astronaut, I guess, or some
yeah, it
some
wasn't
lady.
Musk. It was Bezos. I knew somebody had gone up.
I think at that point, both the oldest and youngest person ever in space
Yeah.
went up, and
Well,
then
then William Shatner went.
and
Yeah,
then
William
William Shatner, who's 174,
Yeah.
went up.
I wonder if he got up there and Shatner in his pants.
Well, anyway, so this was basically kind of, I guess, it's making kind of commemorating that commercial space flight is actually viable and is happening. So we're doing that. Let's see, and then related to that, Jeff Bezos has stepped down as CEO of Amazon,
Yeah.
and so he was doing other things he's going to pursue, and so we're just anyway. So that's interesting. In April, the AirTag was released, and that in of itself has created a big controversy. But here's the interesting thing: there were already trackers out there.
Sure.
Apple, if anything, Apple's got a better tracker in many ways, but I guess the fact that there are more. So Tile was probably the big one.
Right.
Right.
And you had to opt in on the Tile network, and you happened to have Tile first, and you had to and then opt in on your phone, whether it be Android or Apple.
Right.
And then, it works and it's okay. But when Apple came out with their AirTags, there are so many more of us who have iPhones who don't already. You don't have to be basically have a device or have an AirTag to share AirTag information. Right. So the fact that there's so many devices out there that they were able to, they've got a network of devices that are already out there. And so now when you put that, so the people have been tracking people. They've been throwing, or with a magnet or something, putting an AirTag in the bumper or the wheel well of your car. And so there've been, in Texas, we've had some people doing that. So,
But that kind of thing was going on before any of this technology existed.
right. So
That was happening.
Yeah. So anyway, that was released in April. The Colonial pipeline attack. So we saw an increase, a marked increase in the number of cyber attacks, and so that was a big deal. But Colonial pipeline being one of those, and then now, did you ever remember Project Pegasus? Mm-hmm. So there's some software by a company in Israel called NSO Group, and the software is called Pegasus, and they were selling that to governments. And in theory, I guess they were saying, well, we're selling it to just nice governments. Yes. Well, whatever. And some of those nice governments were actually tracking journalists and diplomats, lawyers, people who are political opponents. I mean, there are all kinds of things. And this is expensive software. It's very highly technical, and it's very difficult to do. But if you have this software, even an iPhone can be compromised. And so more recently, Apple has gotten with this. Now, there's Project Pegasus, who is there's an organization called Forbidden Stories, and they're forbiddenstories.org, and you might go check that out. But in any case,
better be careful to don't do forbiddenstories.com, because I can imagine it's probably a different. I'm just guessing.
Maybe, yeah. So, but in any case, there's
you might really see something you can't unsee.
I'm just guessing, not that I would know, but no.
So if you go, basically Apple has gotten the information, and they leaked. There was a bunch of reports that were leaked, and Apple has gotten with that organization, and they're actually notifying you if you happen to be one of those people, and they know you're being tracked. So that's a good thing. And then see this technology, using one technology against another technology. So good can be used for bad, and then we have to have something to counter that. It's a cat and mouse game. So And more, ransomware. We talked. So just lots and lots of ransomware. I was trying to see if there's any. But governments were hit. I mean, companies, managed service providers, the people like us that do provide IT services.
But Terry, I think it's safe to say, Terry, the more connected we become, the more vulnerable we become.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
But then that's where, again, it's a cat and mouse game, but we're getting better.
But how much more connected can we get? I can buy a damn refrigerator now. That literally, I can look inside the refrigerator while I'm at the store and see what I'm out of. I mean,
right.
And I don't need that much
At some point, your
organization in my
refrigerator
life.
will go to the store and buy the stuff itself. Maybe that'll be the most.
Oh, we've already got Rosie the robot.
Yeah.
That's already here. I mean, that's. Yeah.
So, right to repair has become a big deal. Now, in the automotive industry, y'all went through this years ago with right to repair. That's why you can go to your dealer and buy any part you need from the manufacturer, is because there have been years ago, the automotive industry went through this. Is my understanding. You know more about this. Up to 10 years. What does that mean?
In other words, they only have to go back to 10 years.
So they only have to provide 10 years worth of parts.
10 years worth
but
of
that
parts.
also opened it up for third-party parts to be made as well.
Yeah,
but
aftermarket.
Right, aftermarket. Well, that's been sort of a big deal in the technology industry, especially with Tesla and with Apple, with any of these manufacturers of these phones and devices, is that you should be able to repair your device. Now, we're an authorized service provider for Apple, so we obviously have to follow Apple's rules. But I have mixed feelings about this, but I think it's going to be buyer beware. I think that the right to repair, you got to be careful. There are third-party places around here that can repair your Apple device or your Android device, but you take a risk of those people not having the proper training, putting in a third-party battery that's not good. It could cause a fire. So you really, really, really got to be careful with that. And just
non-OEM parts.
Right. And same thing in your automotive stuff as well. You got to be careful of the quality of those parts. So, but I think the market will determine that and help make those things better as well. So I'm all for that. But anyway, right to repair has been a big deal because it made some inroads. They're throughout states in the country. They're trying to get that in. They're trying to maybe introduce some federal legislation as well. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, chips are hard to get this year, and that's why we had a whole bunch of vehicles sitting being manufactured, except for the chips that need to be in there. And they were setting up in Michigan, or all the different plants around. Ford had how many F-150s?
Kentucky Motor Speedway was full of them.
Okay,
well, I mean, we've whole car dealerships that look like ghost towns.
Oh, well, that's a whole. Yeah.
I mean, they've run out of used cars. Used inventory has been depleted totally in some places.
Top dollar for it.
And you're
and more than in many cases the new one.
Which is what's stopping me from buying a truck right now. Is I'm not going to overpay by thousands of dollars for something that I don't have to have right now.
Yeah.
I want it. I don't necessarily need it right now, but I want it. But I'm trying to set aside my wants and wait for things to come back down to earth, and they will.
So that also will make. Have you seen an uptick in some of your service because people can't buy something? It's like, well, I might as well fix.
Yeah, our service has stayed strong the whole time.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. Windows 11 was released back in October. So that's going to be the next thing for the Windows things. However, you got to make sure your hardware supports it, because it has to have a certain chipset on it in order to fully support it.
And that's where people run into real problems, isn't it? Is you've got your computer may run great, but it's 6 years old, and it's just it can't accept that update and can't run it. And sometimes what you run into, you'll start these updates and it fouls something up in there, and then you end up having to take it into somebody because you can't figure it out.
Well, and you have compatibility issues and all that. So having a good trusted IT professional to work with would be advisable.
It's ideal.
Apple came out.
Tech Solutions.
Yeah. Apple came out with their M1 Pro. Now, it was end of last year of 2020, they introduced the MacBook Pro 13-inch with an M1 chip. That was their first M1 chip. But this year, in October, we came out with the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros with the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, which is basically kicking Intel's butt from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
So that is awesome. I've got mine on order. I'm waiting for it. It should ship here any day. I'm hoping my 16-inch version. But anyway, let's see here. Oh, and we talked about this a little bit. Facebook kind of rebranded and jumped up a level. They made a company above that, I guess a holding company or what it is, but they basically created a company that oversees.
So Facebook in itself now is a subsidiary of Meta.
And by the way, was that the dumbest introduction of a? That was the most weird, dumb introduction of a. Yeah.
He's just weird anyway. Yeah. But that's regardless. I don't know. But anyway, so basically, it's talking about the fact that you can be anywhere, whether it be in front of an iPad or you put your goggles on or in person or whatever. You got avatars and all this other stuff, which, here's the thing about technology, something I wanted to touch on. As we start seeing things like the refrigerator with Wi-Fi or with internet access and a camera and all that, with Meta, with all kinds of things that are disruptive, using our phone to pay for things, that is going to, it just will happen. It's just, and I'm unfortunately, I think the chips and put in your body and that kind of stuff is not going to be our generation. It's going to be several generations down that may be easier to adopt because they're being introduced to the idea. Because if you had never thought of it, it ain't happening, right? But once you think about it, and people promote the ideas, and if something happens and it makes it easy and it improves your life, or in some ways it may make your life worse in other ways, but if the preponderance of the evidence, if you will, is towards a positive, at least the perception is positive, then the newer, younger people are going to adopt it. So anyway, finally, speaking of this, we're relying on the cloud so much.
We sure are.
Amazon shutting down, being so big that they shut down Parler. But they had their own crash here the last few weeks, the last couple of months. They've had some major shutdowns that cause all kinds of havoc, and we've all been affected. And that is, they are so large. And see, that's where Amazon made their money in the initial. They were making money on they were a textbook seller, right? And then they it made that retail. But the reality is, they were building systems, these computers, these servers on the back end, and they say, hey, you know what? If we make it for us, we can start selling it. That's where their money was being made. And they make money now on Amazon itself, but the sales side of it. But they really make money. It's more about systems and logistics. That's their powerhouse. That's their power play. Very
powerful position to be in as a company.
Absolutely.
Very powerful.
But you control the data, you control the information,
that's
you control the world.
Boy, do you ever.
So there you go. Those are the things that from a technology point of view. And you can see how all of that touches on so many areas of our life. We weren't probably, let's see, half of this, we were affected somehow or another.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In all of this. So.
Well, Trey, you got a This Week in History thing you want to wrap with?
Yeah, real quickly, we can do that.
Okay, let's do that.
So, This Week in History, this is the week, the December 26th to the 1st. So it's the last week of the year. In 1065, Westminster Abbey in London was consecrated.
Okay.
So it goes to show you how old that is. 1583, the first day of the Gregorian calendar in Holland and Flanders. We follow the Gregorian calendar. Before the Gregorian calendar, January 1st was not the new year. So that's what we follow. 1732, Benjamin Franklin, under the pseudonym Richard Saunders, begins Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah.
1835, the Treaty of New Ochoa is to cede all the lands of the Cherokee east of the Mississippi River of the United States. It's started the Trail of Tears, basically. 1860, this week, Harriet Tubman arrives in Auburn, New York, on her last mission to free slaves. And on this day, 3 years later, in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation is issued by Abraham Lincoln to free the slaves in the Confederate States. 1942, the U.S. and 25 other countries signed a united declaration against the Axis. Of course, Germany, Italy, and Japan. And then they had a few other, but those are the major players. 1945 this week, ratification of the United Nations Charter is completed. 2012, Vladimir Putin, I didn't realize this, In 2012, Vladimir Putin signs into law a ban on U.S. adoption of Russian children. There was a time when it was kind of popular for Americans who were looking for children to go to Russia to adopt children because it's a crappy place to live, in a lot of places. And Putin ended that.
Wow.
And on this day, or on this week in 2013, seven-time world champion, Formula One champion Michael Schumacher suffered serious head injury in a ski accident in the Alps. Ironically, the guy raced Formula One for many, many years, never got seriously injured, and nobody really even knows what his condition is. They say he's not in a coma, but he's obviously not in public anymore. Real quickly, famous birthdays this week. Paul Revere was born in 1735. Betsy Ross was born in 1752, same day, by the way. Her name was Elizabeth Griscom. 1895, J. Edgar Hoover, the first FBI director, was born. 1943, John Denver was born this week. 1936, Mary Tyler Moore was born this week. 1922, Stan Lee was born.
Wow.
1975, Tiger Woods was born. 1800, Charles Goodyear, who revolutionized vulcanized rubber, and we have Goodyear tires, obviously.
Yeah.
1954, Denzel Washington was born, and in 1822, Louis Pasteur was born, possibly one of the most prominent people in the history of the world because he came up with penicillin.
Right. And
how many hundreds of millions of people's lives have been saved because of penicillin?
Well, is the pasteurization
I'm sorry,
process?
not Pasteur. My fault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not Pasteur. Penicillin. I had penicillin on my brain. No, pasteurization of homogenized milk.
There we go. Okay. I was like, maybe he did that too.
No. Different guy.
Okay.
Different guy. So,
all right. Well,
that's
cool.
it.
So with the Russian children thing, that's interesting. I was going to look that up. That's still, there's a whole, apparently, the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Service has a whole article on that, what you just talked about.
By the way, Jonas Salk is the one who, and I didn't even look that up on my head. Jonas Salk is who came up with penicillin.
Okay, there we go.
I don't know why I had Louis Pasteur and I just started rattling, but no, it was Jonas Salk came up with penicillin.
Okay.
Louis Pasteur came up with a way to pasteurize milk,
which actually makes it last. Well,
it lasts a lot longer.
They say it does, but the reality is that the natural milk does seem to. I mean, you get whole milk. We got whole milk for a while from this place. Together,
dairy
seemed like it lasted longer that way. But actually, the organic milk we get at the store lasts longer than one that's not organic.
Well, here's the thing.
So it's just interesting.
What happens is, I've always been suspect of those dates anyhow. Mm-hmm. You think the cow tips the farmer off? He goes, over 12. Yeah. I mean, who the hell knows?
Hey,
open it up and smell it. It's okay. If it smells bad, don't drink it. If it smells
and that's
okay,
the thing
fine.
it's the smell test.
Yep.
And if I'm kind of on the fence, I'll take a little sip. If it tastes funky at all, spit it out right away.
If it tastes bad, it's buttermilk.
Keep it around a little longer and shake it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Is buttermilk not the most horrid smelling thing on planet Earth?
Yeah. But cottage cheese doesn't taste the same.
I won't eat
cottage cheese and pears.
Nope, I won't eat cottage cheese.
Man.
Nope.
And peaches. Nope. Some people do that.
Nope.
I don't know why that actually.
Nope. That cottage cheese always looked like something I need to go to the doctor and get removed.
There you go.
No, I'm good. Anyway, that's it.
Thanks for listening.
We're gonna wrap this podcast up. Join us next time for another edition of Get It Right with Mike, Trey, and Terry. You got us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor FM, YouTube. We've got a web page coming soon. It's going to be awesome, and we thank you.
Review, please.
Please leave a review. You help us grow this show. You help us grow this audience. Tell your friends. Share it with everybody. We appreciate it very much. And, maybe one day we'll make $5 or $6 off of it. So, anyway, until next time, guys, take care. We'll see you down the road.